Well, not anytime, just 5 minutes late.
Yep. Yep. Good. I'm glad that I haven't listened to once in a while. All right. We got 16 that I can see. Glad you all are here. Recording is being done. And I assume it's on Facebook now. Can I say hi to Facebook people? It's already on it. Okay. Hi, Facebook people. Come on, party people. Come on over to Zoom. Don't be on Facebook because I never check anything there. So want to join me on Zoom. Let's pray. Thank you, Jesus, for taking care of us, for enabling us to do the work that we do during the week. Thank you for children and for parents and for jobs and for food and for all the little things that you've blessed us with. And we thank you for this text or these many texts that we're going to look at tonight. And I don't have any idea whether I'm supposed to thank you for giants or not, but we're going to talk about those tonight. So help us to know what we're supposed to make of this, because this is weird, like everything else we've been doing. So be with us, please. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, quick reminder. I think as I look around, most everyone has been here lots of times, but, humility, scholarship, what are all the buzzwords that we use here? We're trying to get you out of your comfort zone a little bit, tell you some things that you might not have heard in church before. It's the whole point of this Tuesday school, to be a little bit more academic than your pastors know how to be. They might know how, they might not know how, but that's not their job as pastors to give you all the academic stuff. They're trying to draw you closer to Jesus. So, but some of us are nerds and we're interested in this kind of stuff. And so we just have fun with this. And God, I think, allows us to have fun and look at his word and try to exegete as best as we can or pull things out of the text. And in the end, hopefully the humility is going to reign and we'll be okay with either both not knowing some things and realizing the things that we do know probably we probably don't know, and giving in to other people as much as we can, falling on our sword when we have to. So humility. All right, so here's what we've been doing for the last, I don't know what it is, 15, 16. Sarah probably knows because she records these and puts them on YouTube, but there's been a bunch of different ones that we've been talking about: the devils, deities, demons, death, dragons, all those different D's there, and just all the weird monsters in this bizarre textbook of this reader's book. You guys have reader's books in college where you get like little snippets of lots of different people that, that's kind of what this is. Lots of different versions that are leading us to God. So I got on TikTok today. All right, that's a good entrance for Lori Vokley to come in if they let her in. I got on TikTok today, and one of the things that came up was giants are real. The Bible proves it. And I was delighted that we were talking about giants today. And of course, I went on a little bit deeper of a dive on TikTok after I saw that one because, why not, right? But this first one was such a blast to me because it was the Bible proves that it's real, right? The Bible proves giants are real. And then it went on to mention different verses that talk about giants. And that was it. That was the proof that they're real because the Bible mentioned them. I mean, that's a super interesting view to me. It's like saying that giants are real because I know the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah. Clear, right? So, and then they went through it. Like, here's Goliath, right? They're real. He's 9 feet tall. Here's King Og. We'll talk about him, right? This bed was made for. Here is the Nephilim, right? These are giants. Here's the sons of Anakim. These are giants. Therefore, the Bible has proved giants are real. I was like, I don't think that's how the Bible works. But you guys already know that. That is not the way the Bible works, right? So went on YouTube, went on all these different things. There are so many people talking about how the Bible proves giants are real. I really probably should have done the same thing for the dragons and for the seraphim and for the Satan, all that stuff. But I only have so much life to give for, that meme that says, Wait till you're smarter. What does it say? You can probably talk once you're smarter, or something like that. Like I don't have time for some kinds of people. So anyway, there are giants in the Bible, and they're super fun. Now we've got to determine what in the world is happening. Why are giants in the Bible? What is going on in this particular thing? So there certainly seem to be some earthly giants that we know of, maybe some heavenly giants, and that makes sense because every ancient Near Eastern civilization that I know of has some sort of giants in it. And it's not just that, right? The Titans are giants. The Greeks have it. It does. I don't even. There's probably giants in every world that I just don't know all the worlds, so I can't speak authoritatively. But in the worlds that I know of, there are giants. Okay? And if you go on there and say, "Are giants real?" Don't even write the word Bible in. Just go ahead and do that anytime you want, and you will see incredible pictures of archaeologists working on someone's skull, and they're basically standing there. The skull's as big as them, right? Or the whole thing, like, we found a skeleton in a tomb. Look at this, and there's like 3 guys walking back in this tomb, walking back and forth. One's near the ankle, one's near the pelvis, one's near the head, and they're like, all working on this thing. Like, whatever this giant is, it's like 40 feet tall. Okay, so they're real apparently, and we've got footprints of people's feet are in footprints from, Paleolithic rock. I don't have any idea what I'm saying when I say Paleolithic. It just sounds very old. Something, I don't know what it is. But super old rock, and we see the foot in there, and they put their foot in there, and the foot is like 3 times the size. You've seen all this stuff, right? I'm just going to say this straight off for those of you who don't know it yet. 100% of those pictures are, I think the technical word is fake. Like, they are not real. They're completely fictional and made up. Okay, stop falling for what they put on the internet. Even before AI, we've had all this stuff. Now you can make anything you want. It's not real. Now, that doesn't say whether there actually were giants. I'm just saying those pictures you find everywhere are not real. All right, I'm just going to say that. So now the question is, are giants real? All right, so tell me some giant stories. What do you guys got?
Genesis 6.
Genesis 6. All right, so you're in the Bible right away. Good job. That's good, scholarly, biblical guy. What other good giant stories do we have?
Andre the Giant.
Andre the Giant. Excellent. Yep. And he had a gland problem, right? Glandular, something to do with that. Yeah. And he was a big boy. His hand is like bigger than heads. Yep. Any other giant stories that you know of? The Odyssey had a giant story, right? Where he, like a giant cyclops.
Cyclops, yeah.
Yep.
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, of course, Jack and the Beanstalk. That's a good one. And we can talk about that because, right, he goes up the beanstalk, and then he finds this like pot of gold, which is like everything you could ever want, right? Oh my gosh! And you should immediately think, okay, giant pot of gold belongs to giant something that keeps this gold. Maybe I should just leave, but he doesn't. He goes for other things, which, by the way, should bring up the question of Joshua's people go into a land. They come out with a bunch of grapes that 2 people are holding. You know how you can hold a bunch of grapes like this, right? This is how you hold a bunch of grapes. You don't hold it with 2 people. It's not like they took all the grapes together and put them in a big bucket. No, it's a bunch of grapes and 2 people. If that happens, you should probably not go into the land, which, by the way, is what they say. All right, but we'll get to that one. All right, any other cool giant stories you know of? Maybe you went to the circus one day. They've got giants in the circus sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
there's a giant here in Bakersfield that swallows swords.
Whoa, he's a giant, and he can swallow swords?
That's right.
Oh,
And he's in
cool.
the circus. So
He better be. I mean, what other job is he going to like?
I mean,
he's the bagger at my grocery. I just wanted you to know. Sometimes a big sword.
Yeah.
Okay. No other giant stories.
There's like the real ones that are cool. Like the people that actually have the genetic, like whatever it is the opposite of dwarfism probably. And it makes them really big, and they don't, yeah, and they don't live very long, but you read about those people and hear those stories.
Yep, that's right. And they're real. You can find skeletons of those kinds of people for sure. there's people that are living that can, you know, dunk basketballs. I don't understand that. They're giants to me, that's for sure. Right? Some of them don't even have to jump to dunk.
Yeah. I was thinking Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, man, dude. And again, hands like, yeah. All right. So these are some of the things. Now, what we've got to think about is, are the Bible's talking about in this? Are they intended for us to understand them to be actual beings, or are they completely fictional, or might there be some in between? Right, which is, you know, for us on here, we always like saying must be somewhere in between. I'm just saying we don't know. Maybe each passage needs to be figured out on its own. Maybe all of them have the same kind of leanings. So, you know, as always, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through all of them. But here is where I want you to be. This is what I want you guys to be thinking of as we're reading through these texts. Okay, the idea of culture, whatever that culture is, turning someone into the bad guy. Okay, so we do this all the time. And some people, especially when you're talking about myth, stuff like that, they call it monsterization, right? We make someone into a monster. I think we maybe call it like more like demonization now. We call them the Democrats, right? You know, those Democrats, the Democrats. So we push something on them, right? So we change the way that we understand them so that we don't see them as real anymore. So we give them some kind of thing, monsterization, to rationalize whatever persecution or oppression or whatever we want, you know, to let us get away with murdering people, right? And at the end, I hope we'll have some time to maybe even talk about some of that. What do we do today to do those kinds of things, right? You know, those Hamas, they're evil and they kill everybody. Therefore, they should be destroyed by bombs, right? They're evil, not they're people in God's image. They're evil. And then we just, whatever it is, right? The Russians are evil, right? So, of course, we want Rocky to beat him up in Rocky 4, the best ever, right? Because they're evil. So we monsterize them. That's the idea here. Whether that's Jews or Muslims or colored people or whatever we need that to be, we say something that has happened that we don't like about. I mean, we might not, we just don't like them and we don't even know why. So we do something on it. So we monsterize and demonize them so it's easier to hate them. Philistines are giants. Primeval progenitors of Canaan are giants. Moab's beginnings are giants. Whatever we feel like we need in order to be able to destroy people easier without feeling guilty. All right. So I want us to get to that question, but I want you to be thinking about it because maybe that concept is new to you. So as we look at these giants, maybe we shouldn't be automatically seeing them as real, literal things, but maybe they've been created as monsters in order to tell a story, which would not make the text less true. It would just make the text less historical, right? Or historically precise. It could still be 100% true from their perspective. Okay, so let's get into that. Let's start in Genesis 6. I think that's the place the first giants show up. Although I should say right from the get-go, there is nothing about giants in this text. And yet, we always say this is the text where giants show up. So this should be fun. Genesis chapter 6, you guys know the story. We've probably dealt with it on here. I feel like I've talked about it. I've talked about it many places, so I never know where. But Genesis 6 is this story right in between this long genealogy in chapter 5, giving us the table of the nations and all that stuff. And then, boom, Genesis 6 through 9 is all the flood. And then we got some more stuff going on with the whole tower thing and all that going in 11, and then the rescuer, Abraham. But this is right there, right before the flood. Verse 5 is going to start the flood narrative. Verses 1 through 4 are going to tell us this pre-story. So somebody besides me read the first 4 verses of chapter 6.
And mankind began to multiply on the earth. The daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that the daughters of mankind were beautiful, and they took any they chose as wives for themselves. And the Lord said, my spirit will not remain with mankind forever, because they are corrupt. Their days will be 120 years. My Bible is messing up.
Oh, what you need to say in that case,
Oh,
Tom, is
the
I'm sorry, I'm trying to
Nephilim-
translate the Hebrew right now. It's very difficult. That's what you should say.
Yeah, I'm live translating it.
Yeah, right.
The Nephilim were on the earth both in those days and afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of mankind who bore children to them. They were the powerful men of old, the famous men.
All right. So the first thing, I kind of already gave it away, that you might notice is in a text, in a class on giants, there aren't any giants. Right? Do you see that?
Right.
Like, there's nothing there. So what do we see? What's the weird word here?
Nephilim.
Nephilim, right? Okay, so Nephal means to fall, which is one of the great blessings of the Hebrew, is every once in a while it rhymes and you can remember it. So Nephal, that has nothing to do with it. It just happens to work out every once in a while. So Nephal means to fall, but does it mean like to fall from heaven? And people have had lots of conversations about what it means to fall. Is it a fall from grace? And I think most scholars would probably say if it comes from that word Nephal, it's the idea of like falling out of normality, like a very specific fall, like we would say something like you dropped your baby, and that's why they're like that, right? So they fell, like they got deformed, something happened to them. Okay, so it's something that's happened in the fall. Don't think about the theological fall from Genesis, but they were just born messed up. Okay, if that's where it comes from, we don't actually know. There's not a whole lot of information on this.
Strong says bully or tyrant.
Okay, yeah, they're making it up too. So I mean, that's
The Septuagint translates it.
yeah. All right, nice job, Josh. Okay, all right, go ahead, Josh. Yeah, I mean, this is where we get it, right? So the question of where Nephilim comes from the Septuagint. Josh, take it away, sir.
No way, dude. I just was trying to. Yeah, I get excited. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Septuagint translates the Old Testament into Greek, and so that's where the word giant comes from.
That's right.
It could also mean mighty one, also too, though.
Right. So it is the word
mighty
gigantes,
ones.
right? It means giant. It's the same word that we have, gigantes. It comes almost directly from it. And so yeah. So Septuagint, remember, Septuagint is a Greek translation that's coming a few hundred years before Jesus. Hebrew text would have come at least a couple hundred years probably before that. I mean, for Genesis at least, right? Maybe Daniel would be somewhere around the same time, but at least Genesis would be a couple hundred years. Or if you have a very conservative outlook on this, you would say it's like 1,500 years before Jesus. So 1,200 years before the Septuagint. There are very few scholars would hold that this was written in its final form 1,500 years before Jesus. But whatever the case, right? The Hebrew is going to come hundreds of years before the Greek does. But remember this is not part of our little lesson here, but remember, the Hebrew text that we have is the Masoretic text.
Right.
Masoretic text, or Masoretes, right? The people who put the diacritical notes into the Hebrew. So that is, they put the little dots in this and the squares, the little symbols all around, which means they put vowels in, they vocalized it, and they told us how this works and all that. Those people come way after even that Greek text. Okay, so that's way after Jesus they would have come in. Now, what we're assuming is that they're using older texts, okay, and it's a whole manuscript thing that they're using these older texts and they're adding their things into it. Okay, so we're going to assume that the Hebrew is more original, even though what we have is later, but it's more original. And the Greek comes in and it interprets or it translates. And in the Greek culture, this is exactly what would have happened. The gods or angels, or however you want to understand that. By the way, remember, angels, we don't really have angels at this point. We got some Anakim, but not quite like we would expect. So they're a little different than the angels that we see. But the gods, the sons of God, right? That's what it says. When men began to multiply on the face of the ground, the daughters were born to them. The sons of God, so B'nai Elohim, saw the daughters of men were fair. So these sons of God took, and in Greek culture, and the sons of God, when the gods come down and they take women, what they produce are demigods. And demigods, or demons, which will eventually become something like that, are giants. So the Nephilim are giants. That's where it came from. That's where the idea is. And it's probably accurate in Hebrew too, right? That's probably what they were thinking when they were writing this. There's something about them that makes them different. They're these hybrid creatures that always come in. What's up, Stacy? Never see her. Nice to see you. All right, so they probably come in the Greek culture. So the sons of God saw the daughters of men. It doesn't say they married them. What does it say they did? I mean, it could mean married, but what does it say?
Took them as wives.
Took them.
Took them. Took them. Right. So they took to wife, or took as their own. That's what's going on here. And by the way, this is going to keep showing up. This seeing that they were fair, taking, and then going further with, right? So you remember this from Genesis chapter 3, right? They saw that the fruit was good, right? See, take, exactly, right? So see, they take what they want, takes the fruit and eats it. So they see, they take, they eat. Okay, and that's exactly what's happening here. Okay, although the eating is a little bit more euphemistic there, right? So they see, they take. Same thing is going to happen. David is going to be on the roof. He's going to see, he's going to take, he's going to eat. Like, this is going to be a consistent problem for people throughout humanity. And I'm guessing it happens to you nearly every day, especially all of you who are on diets, right? Peanut butter cup is sitting there. You see, you take, you eat, right? And those of us who are like sex drives, right? We see, we take, we eat. Like, this is what gets us into trouble in the culture. Okay, so here's what's happening. These sons of God are just like us. They grab women for themselves. They take women for themselves. Wives is just the word woman. So you just have to determine whether it's a wife or a woman that they're taking. It's probably they took. They probably raped them. Okay, which is a pretty consistent story in that world as well. And basically, it's when a superior and an inferior meet, and they hook up, then it's always considered not okay. And even in our world, right? We are not okay with that. Even if she consents because he's the boss, right? And so it's a consent, but it's not really consensual because she felt intimidated or something like that. So anyway, they took what they wanted. So, and centuries later, Enoch is going to come up. We've talked a lot about first Enoch here, but Enoch's going to come around. He's going to develop these ideas into this super complex saga about angels or watchers. Some of the translations will say he's going to have watchers, and they're going to go bad, and they're going to rape women, and they're going to be punished for it. That's all going to happen in Enoch. Enoch is much later, though, right? Again, Second Temple period. So a couple hundred years before Jesus, probably. And maybe even the versions that we have are Christianized. So they may even have edits up into the Christian side. But an author of Genesis isn't doing all that stuff. Very simple. 4 little verses, right? That's all that's going on here. And the pseudo gods, whatever they are, they rape, take, whatever you want to say here, and they disappear. And the focus is on the Nephilim, okay, which it seems to be the byproduct of what's happening there. And again, it's about crossing boundaries that you're not allowed to cross. We've talked about that a lot in this section, right? So gods are not allowed to cross boundaries down here. Certain angels and creatures throughout things are not allowed to go. That's why, right, cherubim will guard that kind of thing. They're there to stop you from going from one place to the next place. They're, the rainbow bridge, turning the sword. right? Heimdall, right? Yes, you can go now. You have to give permission to go. So that's the cherubim creatures. So the focus is on the Nephilim, the boundary crossing, supernatural and natural. Think about like the island of Dr. Moreau, for instance. Anybody read that? Like these hybrid creatures that are created because he puts things together, he mixes these things in. Doesn't matter. Read more. That's all. So it's cool stuff. All right. So we already talked about what Nephilim means, and so I can skip the rest of that page. Awesome. Nothing in Texas says giant. Yep, I said that already. Mighty men of old. Yeah, so I talked about Enoch. I've already talked about the book of the giants. Okay, so now here's my questions for you, even in that text alone. Do you have any concerns in this text? Is there anything that, other than what we've already talked about, anything grab you as being weird, or like the whole thing is weird, Jace? This is why I always ignore this text. Yeah.
It changes the concept of DNA all coming from Adam.
Interesting. It sure does, doesn't it? Right? So DNA is now not Adamic, at least not completely. Okay? So if you're holding to a very literal Adam, right? The story is telling you that, whatever you believe about what it means, the story is telling you about a man and a woman, right? And how they reproduce and that stuff. And now we have a new way of reproducing. Something else has entered into the world. Oh, sure. Now my camera works when I don't even want it to. All right, great. Okay, very good. Very good.
Somehow it says in verse 3
Breaking up, Josh.
that it says, "Spirit shall not strive with man forever." So man over 120 years prior to this. Dang it, my connection's unstable. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think we made out
Can you
what
guys
you
hear
said.
me?
It was a question of 120 years, and were they around, like before that, did they live 120 years? But now that's the most that they can live. Right? Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. And there's a lot more going to it, and now that's going to be frozen for him. Just yeah. So 120 years. What's going on with that? I'm immediately drawn to remember that Moses lived 120 years, and Moses is the author of this. At least that's our version of it. So there's something going on there. 10 times 12. Yep. Important. Yep. And so numerology is always significant here. All right. For our sake, though, there's something in here that I noticed. You just have to like put yourself in my brain, which is I should never ask you to do because that is the scariest thing ever. All right. So in verse 5, we've got the flood coming, right? So the flood's about to come. How many people are saved in the flood?
8.
8. So what's happening with this? The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards.
They survived the flood.
So isn't that kind of weird?
They hitched a ride.
Ah, somehow they survived, maybe by hitching a ride. And yeah, there are Second Temple myths about them hitching a ride. So when you saw Russell Crowe's Noah and you were so offended by whatever those rock monster watchers were, guess what? They're just grabbing hold of some ancient texts that had very similar things. So yeah, they weren't using just straight Bible, but you got to fill in gaps with the Bible. It's only 4 verses long, so we got to fill in some gaps to know what's going on. But this is going to be weird because they're going to keep showing up even though they've been 100% wiped out. And the text is going to tell you they're going to keep showing up, which should, I think, ask you some questions about a literal interpretation of what's going on here. It's going to be really hard to hold to a literal interpretation of God saved only 8 people and everyone else in the world died, and yet somehow they managed to escape. It seems weird to me. I don't know. All right,
It would
let's go
also
to the
mess with your whole. It also messes with your whole original sin through Adam, since they're coming from heaven to rape the women. You know?
right. And so some scholars would actually argue that there are multiple fall narratives in Scripture, and this is one of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's just a different narrative. This is a different creation myth.
Right.
But I like the idea of the original sin thing. That's after party from last week. That's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we call these different things different tradents. I'm writing it down because you may not have heard the word before. I'm constantly reminded that I live in a different world where I see words all the time, and I just know I got to keep reminding you. And you're like, we all know what a tradent is, right? So I'm not talking about a trident. This isn't like, you know.
I was gonna say, does it have like 4 points instead of 3? How does that work?
No, it's not that. So it's just somebody who's writing a tradition.
Mm.
Okay, so there's multiple traditions, so variety of different ones that are going to show up in Scripture, right? Like, so one tradent tells you that Judas killed himself by hanging. Another one says that he died and his guts were spilled out when he fell against a stone, right? So those are two different traditions of how he died. And we, because we think the Bible has to be, we just say, right, you know, he hung himself and then this rope snapped and he fell down a cliff and he was gutted that way. Like, we had to do something because we believe a certain way about the Bible. The Bible never asked us to believe, but we just do for some reason.
Yeah.
But the truth is that there's lots of different traditions. Okay. And maybe there's more than one tradition of the fall, or of, I mean, I don't even like to call it a fall. If we do Genesis, I would probably rather call it a failure to mature, right? Like, they don't continue in the trajectory they're supposed to continue. They were little children and they didn't get past it. But that's an aside if we decide to do that in the future. All right. So we've got these different traditions going on. Let's keep following the giants throughout their time here. So here we go. The next time I think that we see them, and you guys can throw places in because I only have so much time to work on this. So if you got other ones that are really important. But the next one that I saw are when Moses, Joshua, when they're going into the land, right? They're heading into the land, and remember the grapes thing that we talked about when I started all this on, right? So they go into the land, and they see something there. So Moses sends in 12 spies, right? 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb. Those are the famous ones. The other ones are Frank, Harry, George. I don't know what they are, right? They just have different names. We don't know.
Ichabod.
Ichabod, of course, yes, the glorious departed. Gotta be him. So they go in, they see, they look around, they do the spying thing, they come back out, and they say, holy mackerel, it's amazing, right? There's a pot of gold at the top of the beanstalk. It's amazing, but there's something connected to the pot of gold at the top of the beanstalk, a giant person that is going to crush us. Okay, so we are just grasshoppers in their sight, all that stuff. Let's see here. It's Numbers 13.
33.
31 through 33. Yeah, go ahead and give me that one. Who wants to read that?
I can. Numbers 13:31. Then the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against this people, for they are stronger than we." So they brought to the Israelites an unfavorable report of the land that they had spied out, saying, "The land that we have gone through as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are of great size. There we saw the Nephilim, the Anakites come from the Nephilim, and to ourselves we seemed like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them."
Okay, so here they are. What do we think? Anything jump out?
The word Nephilim is used again and to describe large people. So
Yep.
kind of yeah.
Okay. So the Nephilim or the Anakim, right? Both.
Yeah, the sons of Anak, huh?
Star Wars connection.
Oh,
Anakin, very nice. This is Anakim with an M at the end, but yes, very close to Anakin.
that's the plural.
That's right. That's the plural, right? So sons of Anak are the Anakim, the Anaks, the people from Anak. Okay, you guys
I don't know.
that. Cherubim, cherubim, right? All those different plurals. You learned your Hebrew plurals. Go ahead, Suzanne. Sorry.
I have a different translation than the one that was read, but it sounds like from my translation, because it doesn't say Nephilim, but it says giants. And then it said that the giant, it kind of is implying that the giants are the sons of Anak. Is Nephilim the giants? And then, so is this text in Hebrew saying that the Nephilim here are descendants of Anak? Is that what it's saying?
It's saying that the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. So the other way around.
Oh, they come from it. It's the other way around. Okay. Got it.
Now, here's what's going on. Just want to take you back to the original question that we kind of were thinking about here. Usually in writings like this, which we have a lot of, the giants or the hybrids, the monsters, the Frankenstein kinds of things, or Wolfman, like these kinds of things. They're hybrids. They half dog, half like all that kind of stuff. These kinds of things are how you refer to the indigenous people of the land that you want. Okay, this is just pretty normal for us to say things. We've got different cultures that are going to look at like the dog-headed people, the umbrella-footed people, and they are actually, this is out there. The feet, the feet face backwards. The savages, yes, good, Travis, yeah, right? Like they can't learn anything. They're just savage. They just kill. They just whatever it is that you need them to be in order to dismiss them as human. Right? That's what they're doing. But the most popular one is giants, like especially in this world that they're living in. Everybody who came before is a giant. And that's kind of we're heading in that direction. But yeah. So anyway, Caleb and Joshua, they silenced the outcry. The 10 people opposed them. They see the Nephilim there, and we're like grasshoppers. Whatever these things are that they see are some sort of aberration of the proper order, some natural order. And there's a little line in chapter 14 that I just found interesting, because in verse 32 of chapter 13, what you just read, the land we explored devours those living in it. Right? So we don't want to go into the land because the land will eat us. Okay? And then in 14, verse 9, it says, only do not rebel against the Lord and do not be afraid of the people of the land, because we will devour them. Right? So it goes from the land eating us to don't worry about it, everybody. We need to go in. We will eat them. Okay? So this is like, we're going to destroy these monsters. Monsters are not going to destroy us. The Lord, their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. Another thing that you do when you monsterize things, right? God is on my side. And the really easiest part of that to see, which is not a big deal, but like when we pray for our team to win, right? Like, which is, we're just hopefully we're just playing with that idea. But yeah, the worst part is what Travis just wrote in the chat, right? Manifest destiny, right? God has told us that this land is ours because those people are evil. Now, I know what you're thinking because I'm thinking the same thing. That is the basic understanding of the Old Testament. It's the reason why we're okay with them going in and destroying people, is because God has said, well, I was just waiting for them to get to the point of total evil for me to wipe them out. That's always the answer, is God knows that they're bad, so let's move them out. But remember, people are writing this. People who don't like the other people. So is it possible that even God's people, God's children who truly love God and are trying to follow him, Is it possible that they put stuff on God that God might not be happy with when they're writing these texts? Is it possible that maybe God, 1,000 years later, will say, all right, I got to clarify some things. Okay, because some of the stuff you said about me, that's just it's not 100%. Like you got like some hints, but you're not quite getting it. So I'm going to clarify this by sending my son to die on the cross for you so that you will get, I'm not a violent God who goes out and destroys people because I don't like them. Instead, I'm someone who says, forgive. Right? That the whole atonement thing we talked about last week, which we can't do. All right, so I'm just kind of throwing that in there because it is a different kind of way of looking at the text, what the text is doing or what the Bible's even for. And it's a little dangerous. It feels a little bit, I mean, at least to me, it feels uneasy. Okay, so if it makes you feel that way, that's okay. I get it. But let's just throw it in there and then keep going. All
I have
right.
a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if that's the way they demonize other people, so that you'd think that would motivate them to go in and wipe them out, and that's their method of demonizing them. But they were giving this as a reason to why they shouldn't go in, that they're so big, that this is so. So was there any truth to, were they bigger or badder somehow? Why would they give that as a reason to not go in?
Okay, so well, I'll let you. I mean, I have an answer. Go ahead. See if anybody else wants to throw this in.
Oh, you've got two different groups, right? You've got Joshua and Caleb that say, hey, we can handle these guys. And then you've got the other 10 that are demonizing them and saying, oh, no, these are huge guys and we can't handle it. And they're afraid to take it on.
All right, that's true. I don't know. I don't think that really answered the question. The wrong people are demonized. Like, it would make more sense for Joshua and Caleb to say, hey, they're bad guys and God wants us to destroy them.
Yeah, true.
So I would go a slightly different direction, although I think that helps us get there. Any other thoughts?
Authorial intent.
Okay, good. Keep going with that.
So whoever is writing down the events of Joshua already has an idea in their mind of what they want these bad people to be. So they'll write the 10 people saying this, oh, they're giants, and the 2 people saying, yes, they're still giants, because the point of this entire passage is that you're going into land filled with bad guys. For the reader.
I'm absolutely persuaded that I could not have said that better.
It
Well,
also
that's a cool
takes another
twist.
39 years to mature as a society.
Okay, say more about that. Yeah.
Well, they got up there at about a year, as I remember.
Okay,
And
so 40 years, yeah.
And they turned around and wandered for another 39 to finish their maturation of becoming followers of God. Till they were ready to go into the land.
All right, I guess I'm asking for, how does that connect with her question? She was saying that if it's monsterizing them, then why didn't that work? Why didn't they go in then? Of course, you probably wouldn't say they were monsterizing them to begin with. You would say, no, they were real things that were big and scary.
Maybe it was God's intent that they not go in.
Yeah, I think that's maybe fair. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's different ways to answer this. Of course, if you're a literalist, right, then this is just exactly what happened. There were monsters in the land, right? There were giants in the land, and people were afraid of them. And other people said, don't be afraid of them. So that is a fine trajectory to go in. The only reason you need Riston's explanation is if you say, no, they weren't real. They were just demonizing them. And then the answer is, they weren't the ones demonizing them. Years later, the author of them was demonizing them. Right? He was trying to do something different with that.
Yeah. Were the cows and the bees big as well?
Those are all questions that literalists have to ask that I don't have to So we'll have to go with whatever you say for that one. Yeah, there must have been big. I mean, it's just a whole like what's the guy who goes into the Lilliput and
Gulliver.
Gulliver, yes, Gulliver goes into the little people and then the big people, right? So yeah, so they're just whole worlds. The bees are bigger, the cows are bigger, everything's bigger. I don't know, but the grapes were bigger.
The grapes were bigger for sure.
So probably the bees were bigger, right? I mean, it had to be. Everything was bigger. So I mean, you have to believe that the grapes, like a bunch of grapes, took two men on a pole to carry, right? And I'm sure that's scientifically possible, but it's probably not then. Like, I mean, it could be. It's not an impossibility, I guess. It just, is that what the text is trying to get you to see? That's really what I'm asking. Not could it happen? Sure it could. But does the text want you to see something different? Like, these are the bad guys, let's go get them.
Right. I think that's the key is monsters are scary, but God's greater than your monster. That's the allegorical.
That's right.
Yeah. God is bigger than your, even if it's demonized, I still think it works. God's bigger than your demon, or stronger than your demon.
Yep. All right, so the land's gonna eat them up. Instead, they say, no, we're going to eat the land up, or the people up. And over the next several years, you remember, the land is actually going to eat up a lot of people. Like, the land literally is going to eat up lots of people. The snakes are going to bite thousands. It's going to be a disaster. There's going to be plagues that happen because of diseases in the land. There's going to be fire that jumps out. I mean, number 16 alone has like the fire jumping out of the altar. Has the land. I mean, that's the most literal thing ever, right? Like, the ground opens up. I guess there's a huge earthquake and eats up the sons of Korah, the Korah rebellion, the Dathan and Abiram rebellion, which I think are two different rebellions, but are flooded together into this really cool passage. And somebody would just do some work on that. I can't wait to read that. That was going to be my dissertation.
I was going to say, didn't you? But yeah, I
didn't do it. Anyway. But I have to bring it up every once in a while because it reminds me of the good old days when I was doing all that real.
It's
all right. So later in Deuteronomy, they eventually prepare to enter the land. Finally, Moses recounts the story to those who have made it. He reminds them how scared their parents were. The scouts reported the people are bigger. This is Deuteronomy 128. This is him recounting it later. So the Deuteronomistic historian, or perhaps the Torah, whoever this passage would be, and this is D, Jedp, in our thing that we talked about a couple weeks ago. This is D. D would say, the people are bigger and taller than we are, and the cities are big and walled up to the sky. So in Numbers, we saw the giants' produce, right? By their fruits you shall know them. Yeah, that's pretty clever, wasn't it? All right, anyway, so but now we're seeing the walls are all the way up too. So here are these giant walls, and God reassures them they're going to conquer the giants, just as He has conquered lots of other giant nations and given that land to normal people. Okay, so this is.
So when we cross the realm into the wrong way without permission, it creates this Nephilim, or this creation's corruption of creation. So this is like another flood cleansing. Even though it's the Canaanite genocide, but it's another cleansing, and I want to even say, to add to this, the Nephilim from heaven saw men, or the sons of men, and had their way with them. The reverse of that in 19, when you have Sodom and Gomorrah, where it's actually the men trying to have their way with angels. It's the same crossing that's inappropriate, and a cleansing again with the fire and brimstone. And so it's this kind of motif here going on. Yeah. It's really beautiful. But what the only way we can really cross the realm is through Jesus, which is like a culmination of the if you're Christian.
So is Jesus one of the Nephilim? We're not going to go there. mean, if they're men of renown, the supernatural creatures that are hybrids of God and man, isn't that an interesting little connection that you could make? Not that any New Testament authors do, but you could do some crazy stuff there if you wanted to. So, and our job is to reimagine the text for a new age, right? So, but be careful as you do that. Like we do that in community. We work together on these things. All right, so let's look at these passages because God is telling them that these need to be conquered and that he has given giant land to normal people later on. You're just like, I don't remember that ever happening. Well, here you go. Deuteronomy chapter 2, verses 9 and 10, and then also 19 through 21. So Deuteronomy, let's look at the D source here. Numbers, Deuteronomy chapter 2. I hope I got the right reference. Nine and 10. Yep. Good. All right. Somebody want to read 9 and 10? Or if you want to start in verse 8, just to give yourself something there is fine.
I got it.
Okay.
So we went on away from our brothers, the people of Esau, who lived in Seir, away from the Araba road from Elath and Ezion Geber. And we turned and went in the direction of the wilderness of Moab. And the Lord said to me, do not harass Moab or contend with them in battle, for I will not give you any of their land for a possession, because I have given Ar to the people of Lot for a possession. The Emim formerly lived here, a people great and many, and as tall as the Anakim.
Okay, probably don't remember that passage because who reads Deuteronomy very carefully? Let's be honest here. Okay, I gave you verse 8 just to say, just to hear how well you could pronounce all those names. And Emily, you rocked it. Oh my gosh, that was good. Because the answer to pronouncing these hard names is just to do it with confidence because no one has a clue anyway. So, all right, so good job. All right, so verse 10 is the key one there, right? The Emim, a large and numerous people, as tall as the Anakim, had formerly inhabited it. Okay, so now we've got another group of people, the Emim, who used to live there, and they used to be giants until they were wiped out and the Moabites took over. Right? That's what you're supposed to be reading here. They've been moved on because the previous inhabitants of all the lands of the people that now are living there, they refer to those people as those people. Just what you do. And look at 19, just in case. Just go down a few more verses. It's still happening. But instead of about Moab, it's about Ammon. By the way, Moab and Ammon are just on the other side of the Dead Sea. So if you picture where Israel is in your map, right? That map that we always give, you know, this one here. Okay, and this is all Israel. This is Ammon and Moab. And I think, and Edom, but I can't remember. My geography is not very good. Can't remember which one's where, but they're all right over there.
If you look at the 12 tribes, they're distributed on both sides of the Jordan.
That's right. So, well, yeah, a little bit. So over here and up here. Yep. And it just depends on when.
The Levant.
During their history. Yep. Okay, so verses 19 and 20 through 21. Just so you see it here. We were talking about Moab and Ar, and now we're talking about Ammonites. Anybody want to read that?
(19 and 20).
Yeah, 19 through 21. Be loud.
When you approach the frontier of the Ammonites, do not harass them or engage them in battle, or I will not give the land of the Ammonites to you as a possession, because I have given it to the descendants of Lot. It also is usually reckoned as the land of Rephaim. Rephaim formerly inhabited it, though the Ammonites called them Zamzumim, a strong and numerous people as tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them from us before the Ammonites, so that they could dispossess them and settle in their place.
And then he did the same for the descendants of Esau, which is Edom, right? Another one of those Ammon. And a lot of scholars would say the rest of these are actually the same similar stories. That some of these, the Caphtorim, King Sion, that these are all also giants. Although it's not clear. It doesn't say they're making assumptions based on the trajectory of the text here. So here's what we're hearing, right? So there are the Zamzumim. There are the Emim. And these are parts of the Rephaim, which were tall like the Anakim. So this is what they call the Anakim. This is what they call the Anakim. They all have different names for these giant creatures. In Moab, they're called Aim. In wherever the other place is, Ammon, they're called Zamzum. You know you like that word. Let's just all say it together. Zamzum. You don't have to turn. Yeah. Okay. Zamzum. Right. So
AVVIM.
AV what?
AVVIM. Who used to live in the settlements of Gaza.
Oh wait, where's that?
On 21.
Verse 21.
23.
23?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's for the
AVVIM is in mine in 23. Yeah.
23, yeah. Who lived in the settlements in the vicinity of Gaza, right? So those are the other ones that scholars are saying, yeah, these might also be these kinds of things. The Avim, the Caphtorim, and I dispossessed them too, and I moved in other people. Okay, so they're normal people. Now, I guess once the Moabites are destroyed, they'll become, in history, the next level of giants, perhaps. Again, only if you're following my trajectory, that other possibility, right? If this is a literal thing, this works. It still works. There were actual giants there. They had different name for them, but they were actual giants, and they destroyed them, and a new group of people came in. Okay, that is basically wherever they were, right? Same thing for Israel. The Canaanites were big. This is what's happening. Canaanites were big. The particular group of Canaanites, the Anakim, the Zamzumim, the Emim, everybody has, wherever they live, they've got a story about the past being giants in that land. And all you got to do to be a literal is to say, yeah, because giants lived all over here. And God was just wiping them out here, wiping them out here, wiping them out here, wiping them out here. Different cultures had different names for it. That works. Okay. I'm just trying to suggest, I wonder if that's what's going on. Maybe there's more to it than that. Okay. Maybe there weren't just giants that had to be destroyed all the time. Okay, so the Rephaim, remember the Rephaim, right? We talked about these because the Rephaim is the same word that we have for the dead. Okay, so these are those people of old, the ancients of old. Okay, so they're old and they're dead in some cases, so they're ghosts, they're shades, or they're giants. Okay, it's the same kind of concept here. All right, so we got those down. By the time you get to chapter 3, now we're seeing, right? Deuteronomy chapter 2. We've got the Zamzumim, we've got the Emim, we've got the Avim, like Fran brought up, all these different things. By the time we get to chapter 3, we're going to see one of these specifically. This is the one you probably remember. Okay, honestly, I didn't remember Deuteronomy 2, like until I did this research. I didn't remember the Zamzumim or the Avim. I didn't know about that stuff because who remembers everything? And I do this all of that. But this guy I remember.
Did he get pegged?
Did he get pegged? King Og?
Did like a peg through his head.
Oh, I think that's somebody different.
Oh, okay.
Yep. That's a story in Judges. Where Jael attacks. All right. So let's look at King Og in chapter 3. And let's just read the beginnings of it because it's fun. And I don't know what we're talking about next week anyway, so we'll just make this go a little longer. All right, so chapter 3. Who wants to just start reading? I'm guessing that your text delimits it there. So it'll tell you where to stop. Probably like, let's stop at verse 11.
Yeah.
Who's got it?
You want to start with 1?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Then we turned and went up the road to Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, with all his people came out to meet us in battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to me, do not fear him, for I have delivered him and all his people and his land into your hand, and you shall do to him just as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. So the Lord our God delivered Og also, king of Bashan, with all his people into our hand, and we smote them until no survivor was left. We captured all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we did not take from them. 60 cities, all the region of Argob, the king of Og in Bashan. All these were cities fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, besides a great many unwalled towns. We utterly destroyed them as we did to Sihon, king of Heshbon, utterly destroying the men, women, and children of every city. But all the animals and the spoil of the cities we took as booty. Thus we took the land at that time from the hand of the 2 kings of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, from the valley of Arnon to Mount Hermon. Sidonians called Hermon Sirion, and the Amorites called Senir. All the cities of the plateau, and all Gilead, and all Bashan, as far as Salakah and Edrei, cities of the kingdom of Og of Bashan. For only Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaim. Behold, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. It is in Rabbah of the sons of Ammon. Its length was 9 cubits, and its width 4 cubits by ordinary cubit.
Okay, so it's really only verse 11.
Really?
But I gave you a little bit of context, right? Yeah. All right, so they took all the towns of the plateau. They took Gilead. They took all the different ones, Bashan and Sebekah, right? And then it's going to tell you about this King Sihon that you're not supposed to be afraid of, this King Og of Bashan. The last of the what? What did he say? What did David read?
Rephaim.
What did your text say? The last of the... I see people's mouths moving, but
the Rephaim, that word you just told us. Yeah.
Rephaim. He's the last of the Rephaim, or the Rephaites, maybe some of you will say. That's just trying to Englishize the word, right? But we don't know. It's like, are you a Columbian or a Columbiite or a like it just depends on wherever you're at. So, and that's when we find out his bed was decorated or was made of iron, and was more than 9 cubits long and 4 cubits wide. Anybody have a Bible that tells you how big that is? Because I don't use cubits.
My version had feet.
13 feet long and 6 feet wide.
Yeah, there we go.
That's a cubit.
It's 18.
I know. Okay. 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. Okay, now, they're telling you that not just to say, like, he was a big bed, but he's a big boy, right? His bed's made out of iron. Mine says decorated, but it's enforced. Okay, because he's a big boy, 13 feet. Let's say he's not 13 feet because he wants his bed to be a little bigger. He's over 10 feet, right? He's 4 feet wide at least. Like he's big. So this is a giant. This is just another one of the ones that are supposed to be defeated in order for God's people to live safely. All right. So now fast forward all the way up to a little shepherd boy in 1 Samuel 17. Okay. You know this story. We are definitely not going to take the time to read this story, although you're going to find the details are nothing like you remember when you were a child. So you should sometimes read some of these little kid stories. But here is Goliath. Okay. Same story all along. You can defeat your giants. Right? You should defeat them, just like Josh said. That's a good thing. So, those preachers who just say, well, Goliath is all about just defeating your own giants. That's a ridiculous thing. Maybe that is exactly what it's about. Maybe they're not as wrong, as ridiculous in their exegesis as we might think once we see the whole big picture. So he's wearing this bronze helmet, full armor. The coat alone weighs 125 pounds, bronze shin guards, bronze scimitar slung between his shoulders. He has a spear the size of a weaver's beam. Whatever his hands are, they're bigger than Shaq's, right? These are some big stinking hands. He's grabbing hold of the spear, and the head of it is 15 pounds. Like, just, I mean, I don't know if you just picked up a 15-pound weight, but this is just attached to the top of the spear, right? So he throws this thing. Like, I mean, I could throw a 15-pound weight probably 15 or 20 feet. But with a weaver thing on there and trying to use it as a weapon, yeah, it would not be pretty. This guy's big, whatever it is. And it tells us how big it is, right? And David tells his great story of his killing lions and bears, and then compares Goliath to a lion and a bear, right? You're an animal, which is very clearly what's happening. Even the scales, it tells you about his armor and the scales that are on there. So you're supposed to see him as a beast, a dragon, a Leviathan-like creature, right? By the way, he's going to cut off his head, which is another thing that you do to Leviathans. You kill them by cutting off their heads. Okay, so everything about this is supposed to be, he's been devilized. He's been monsterized into something. And so the smack talk goes back and forth in verses 43 through 46. And then, round and round and round and round and round and round and round, and hit the giant in the head. The giant can come tumbling down, right? Everyone's singing along. Oh, okay, he comes over, he cuts off the head. He holds up the head, this big, probably not like this, okay, big head in this picture. But I'm pretty sure that the giants were defeated, first of all, in the flood. Second of all, when the Canaanites were wiped out, right? That was the whole thing, is they were supposed to be defeated. And at least one text tells you that they were. Other texts, you read Joshua, they did everything that they were supposed to do. You get to read Judges just like one chapter later, and you're like, and they didn't do everything they were supposed to do. You're like, all right, God. Did they or did they not do it? Okay, but just depends on which text you're reading. And then didn't Deuteronomy kind of clarify for us that Og was the last of the giants?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what was going on here. Shouldn't the Nephilim have been drowned in the flood? All these kinds of questions. And again, there are stories about himself holds on to the flood, onto the ladder. Noah makes a deal with Og ahead of time and feeds him through a hole that he bores in the ark. Right? He makes a little hole and he sticks his hand out and gives him food as he lives outside of the ark. So these are our stories, and we still have them, right? Not just these giant myths, or again, myth doesn't mean fiction, right? So necessarily, but these giant stories of something bigger than themselves. We have them in the Bible, and lots of cultures have them. So I looked at John Smith upon meeting I believe Travis wrote the word savages. When John Smith met the Susquehanna, he said that to the English they felt like giants. So when he met Indians, that's exactly what happened. He describes on the mean. He said, the calf of whose leg was 3/4 of a yard about, and all the rest of his limbs so answerable to that proportion. His arrows were 5 quarters long, and a wolfskin quiver slung over his back. So they're all about, let's bring in. Oh, it looks like she got kicked out somehow. Okay, so animals, we call them animals. We call them savages. We call them wild beasts. Whatever it is that we need. The animals vulgarly called the Indians. That's actually what is written. Who was it? Oh, it was John Smith. He said, the animals vulgarly called Indians. I am so far from thinking the Indians have a right to the soil that they ought to be driven from it. Right? Like, there's no way they have a right to the soil. Just look at them. It's obvious. Isn't it obvious by nature that they shouldn't have this? Isn't this exactly what we've done with slavery for years? Just look at them. They don't look like us. Right? Just look at the Gazans. Right? They're obviously not. I mean, we know Israel is good. Just look. You just name the different one. The police officer who killed Michael Brown, right? Yeah, this is in our world, in our little thing here. Says, I felt like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan. That's just how big he felt and how small I felt just grasping his arm. Basically, this guy was huge. The police officer was 6'4". Michael Brown was 6'5". Right? Like, But this is how you do it. Like, oh my gosh, it was so big. What we do. What do you think? Where are you on this? We just got a few minutes to chat about this. As I always do. I spend all the way up to the minute, and then we got so much to say. And what we'll do next week probably is talk about the end of giants, but also kind of bring in all of them, all the creatures, all the different monsters, and say, where does this take us? Where does this lead us as Christians? Right? Because this is our sacred text. And it is supposed to say something to it. All right, but let's talk just for 4 minutes about the giants.
I Googled giantism, and it had a story about benign tumors on the pituitary releasing excessive growth hormone while the child was small before the bone plates had developed.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
that
maybe
that would feed a concept of multiple occasions of giants being affected by some chemical or radiation, and so they would grow up and then fall away, and then another group could come. So that would explain some of the multiple groups.
That's a far stretch, though. I think it's the story is trying to tell us something, especially in the ancient world. The ancient Near Eastern stories are trying to tell us that giants are these bad people, or the demonized people who we need to conquer. And it's not a literal. I would take it as allegorical, not literal.
Yeah. What about it being an impossible task, causing them to not trust God? They had to learn to get over that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a real exegetical strong point there, Tom. Like this is what we've done is we've said whatever is in there, they're absolutely impossible. We cannot defeat them. And then God comes in. Right. And whether that's like literally they were impossible because they were 9 feet tall, or they were impossible to them, either way, the story is going to end up similar.
I think we embellish all the time. Stories. That's how we tell stories, even now. It's how we make the story. We intensify. We use. It's just the language we use is, and you give good examples. So that's my stance. Is we still do it today, very much so. But
Yeah. Well, you go
I
back.
think the problem is like
Yeah, go ahead.
dehumanization of people. Like as a Christian, like that's what it is. Is like we're dehumanizing so we can destroy because, and like that's it seems weird to like dehumanize by making them sound like giant because I don't think of giant as necessarily a bad thing. But there's other examples in ancient literature where they do that, like in Greek literature and other things that we've probably some of us have read in school. And then yeah, I mean, that relates to modern day. Like the examples I put in the chat, criminals and gang members, those are things said by the current administration about illegals is another word that gets used because they're not human. You talked about black people. I mean, the reason savages, the first one I threw out, Native Americans were not considered human beings under our legal system until 14 years after blacks were freed in the Civil War. Like they were considered savages, which was not a human being. Therefore, they had no human rights or Bill of Rights that applied to them. And you could just take whatever you wanted from them because they were not humans. They were savages. And so, we're saying now that everybody's a criminal or a gang member. Turns out there's 22 people that are suing the US government now because they got released from the hellhole in El Salvador because they should have never been sent there. And Cato Institute, a conservative think tank in Washington, did a study and said 65% of people that have been taken by ICE have no convictions. But that's the rhetoric that we use.
yeah, they're out. The outcasts is one of the. That's perfect, Trevi. And I think what's interesting is Jesus to tie it back in. I know we're out of time, but Jesus says, "Oh no, the outsiders are in. Those people who you think are not invited to the party. Yeah, those are the ones that are especially invited to the party. And if you think you're better than those people, then you've already disinvited yourself because you're not going to come.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a great way to end this, and we do have to end it. But even the prophets talk about inviting in, right? Like even Egypt were the people of God. The people who were not of God, the prophets keep saying, well, they were kind of like, and then by the time we get to the New Testament, like that's the whole brilliant like trajectory move, is that all the outcasts, all the savages, all the lowly from, Matthew 5 that Travis is preaching on, like the lowly are the ones that are the blessed. So all of these ones, and we just keep creating these distances. Now, I think for sure that practical application is helpful to us, and we should be thinking like that. Whether we need to get there from these giant stories from the Old Testament is still a question we should probably wrestle with.
Yeah.
But either way, I think you'd probably agree that we have a tendency as humans to do this. Right? Like we're really good at making them and us. Right? So I think at least as we close, that's a worthwhile application for us to remember. Try not to make them this week, whoever they are for you. I don't know what that list is. For me, it's basically vegetarians. I hate them. I just hate them. But you might have something else. And we all have blinders on to who ours are sometimes.
Sure.
Like we don't even realize that we've ousted them. And you can tell the way you even talk to some people. If you just stop yourself and go, my gosh, those people can't do anything for me. And I don't think really anybody really likes them all that much anyway. So I just treated them worse. Like I was snarky and I was a little mean. Never straight out racists or whatever, right? But a little bit towards whatever that person group is. So anyway, all right, go in peace, be better to each other. I need a closing thing every single week. Love each other more. I don't know what it is. All right. All right.